This is It Was a Thing on TV.
Spoiler number one is Dr. Lee frowns.
It stinks.
What is going on? What is going on?
Episode 70. Submission 550. The Nutt House. The Nutt House aired on NBC from September 20th to October 25th, 1989, for a total of 10 episodes, 5 of which went unaired in the U.S.
Well, guys, we continue sort of where we left off last week regarding Mel Brooks TV shows. We talked about When Things Were Rotten earlier this week, and now we actually get to the next TV show he did in terms of an episodic TV show, The Nutt House, 14 years later. And it didn't even fare as well as When Things Were Rotten. It didn't even get to 13 weeks. As Chico just mentioned, 10 episodes were made, but only 5 aired here in the United States.
Yep. I don't know where the other 5 aired. So,
the other 5 actually aired in Britain on the BBC.
But they have faulty towers. What do they want with this show?
They wanted to see how badly America could mangle a similar premise? Question mark?
Yeah. And by the way, we should probably mention, granted, these are 2 similar shows, but no, one is not a version of the other officially.
No, yes. And one's a classic and the other is The Nutt House.
Dun.
Yeah, just being honest.
I know.
Although, isn't future installment Amanda's with BR for an official American adaptation of Faulty Towers?
Yes.
But we'll talk about that when we cover Amanda's.
Oh, yeah. So, now that we've got that out of the way, let's talk about all the proprietors and guests of The Nutt House. We want to talk about proprietors. Let's talk about Mel Brooks, who, of course, did Get Smart, and last Sunday's installment, When Things Were Rotten. Thank you, Brain. And, of course, he was paired with Alan Spencer, who was noted for future installment, Sledgehammer.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, so you have 2 satirists writing a satire about a hotel. This should be cake, shouldn't it? I mean, this should be easy peasy lemon squeezy, crank 13 episodes, let's go have a beer sort of thing, right?
You'd think.
Yeah, you would think. And you know what? We're also looking at the cast here. I mean, holy... Cloris Leachman as Edwina Nutt, the proprietress and head of the Nutt House. Cloris freaking Leachman, Phyllis herself. 1 season too long on the Facts of Life. This lady is a treasure.
We should also mention that Edwina Nutt was only in the pilot episode, but for the course of the series, she portrayed Miss Frick, who was like the head of housekeeping at the Nutt House.
Yep, and apparently Frick was a more pleasant version of Frau Blucher from Young Frankenstein. Oh, sorry, Frankenstein.
Yeah, I have stuff to say about that a little later. We'll talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah. And again, you want to talk about heavies? Harvey Korman. Harvey freaking Korman as manager Reginald Tarkington. Treasure.
Yeah, what can you say about Harvey Korman?
It's like we're talking about alum of the Carol Burnett show. Featured performer on the Danny Kaye show. Treasure. Legend. Icon. So you have these two icons, and then you have a stellar supporting cast. Charles Nutt III was played by Brian McNamara, who is known for... he has more of a movie pedigree with Short Circuit, The Flamingo Kid, Arachnophobia. Well,
So he was basically that guy in that movie in the 80s and early 90s.
yes. And then you have, as Sally Launeneck, Molly Hagan, who, of course, if you are a person of a certain age, as these two and this one, you remember as the angel on Herman's Head.
Future installment Herman's Head.
Mm-hmm. And also as the foster mom. I forgot what her name was, but she was the foster mom on future installment No Good Nick. You know who the dad was? Ted McGinley.
It always goes back to Ted McGinley when it comes to actors.
Poor
Mhm.
Ted McGinley.
More on that on a future episode.
What did Jefferson Darcy do to anybody?
He existed! Anyway.
He was the photographer the last couple of seasons of The Love Boat.
Yeah. And then you had Dennis, who was played by Gregory Itzen of 24 and future installment Strip Mall.
Yeah. And, of course, Gregory Itzen playing Charles Logan, maybe one of the greatest heels in television history.
Mm-hmm.
Is Strip Mall on the list?
No, it is. I'm putting it on the list.
Is
right
that
now.
the Julie Brown show?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Julie
yes,
Brown
yes.
with Chris Wilde, Jonathan Mangum, and yeah.
I forgot about that show.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I didn't forget about it, but yeah, that's a good entry.
And rounding out the cast as Freddy is Mark Blankfield, who, again, if you're our age, you remember him as James the waiter, or James the acting waiter, or the waiting actor. The waiting actor, acting waiter, on season 3 and 4 of Saved by the Bell.
Oh, yes, from Harvard.
No, he didn't go to Harvard, but he could really, really ham it up there. It's like,
Yeah.
we don't want you at Harvard!
Harvard.
Like, north, south, east, or west, Miss Bellingoat, cheese, ham, pickle sandwiches. There is only one Harvard.
Oh, we should also mention that Mark Blankfield was a cast member on future installment Fridays.
Oh,
Nice.
yeah. Can't wait till we do Fridays. It's on Shout Factory TV, everybody.
Nice. So what was the story about the Nutt House, Mike? Aside from there are a bunch of nuts, 2 T's, in a house with a bunch of nuts, 1 T.
So the story of the hotel is this was a once prestigious hotel in New York City, but, well, it fell on some hard times. Basically because of Edwina Nutt, who we mentioned earlier. But it was like really run down. The elevator was, man, the elevator could not get level with the floor. It was always either like a foot above or a foot below the floor level. So you'd either have to step up or step down. And yeah, that's
So we're talking about a disrepair of epic proportions.
yeah, that's a bit of an OSHA hazard and stuff. Yeah. So they're trying to restore their former glory. Well, they tried.
Well, they tried. So what are all these nuts doing at this hotel then? I do have a plot for the pilot. That might answer some questions.
Well, yeah, let's take a look at the pilot and then we'll take a look at the other 10 episodes of this show.
Okay, when Big Jake Herder, played by David Huddleston, who you recall as Santa in Santa Claus the movie, the best worst movie ever made, by the way.
Oh yeah, and he was also in the poker scene in Super Trade. Remember?
I do remember. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so David Huddleston of the powerful, or Big Jake Herder of the powerful Texplex hotel chain announces his intention to purchase the failing Nutt House hotel. Proprietress Edwina Nutt calls on her ne'er-do-well grandson, Charles Nutt III, to intervene. Upon his arrival, Charles finds a female guest stuck in a phone booth, a nearly blind elevator operator, and discovers that hotel manager Reginald Tarkington has a fake guest list with 600 names on it. A list he's been fudging for the past several years. Whoops.
Oh, but buckle up, folks.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Big Jake's top buyer, Shrike, played by John Delancey, whose kid I went to college with, by the way, gets more than he bargained for when he pays the Nutt House a visit.
Hey, Chico.
Yeah?
Do you know what else John Delancey was on?
Star Trek The Next Generation! If you don't know who Q is, what's wrong with you?
Yeah. But also, he was on a week of Match Game Hollywood Squares.
Yes, he was.
It always comes back to Star Trek The Next Generation or Match Game Hollywood Squares.
Yes, it does.
And sometimes making it.
He wasn't on Making It.
And occasionally Married with Children or Night Court.
And Twin Peaks.
Right.
Yeah. Like we said, it all comes back to half a dozen shows. Those are the half dozen shows. And now you know the rest of the story.
And we should note that the pilot had great ratings. It had 23 million viewers.
Yeah, if you get 23 million viewers in 2020, you're probably renewed for like 5 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And this didn't even make it 5 episodes.
Yeah, what's up with that? 1989 was a different animal on television, I guess.
Hey, Greg, you discovered somebody in episode 1, the pilot, that we didn't mention. Who are you talking about?
Oh, well, 3 minutes into the episode, baby. He's going to come up in a future episode, making a cameo, arguing with Gregory Itzin and Harvey Korman is Herb!
Herb from the Burger King ads back in the early 80s. Specifically, actor John Menick.
Yeah, he also played the same old man for Arby's, Louis the Lip for RC Cola, and he also did spots for Mazda, AT&T, 9X, IBM, Dymatap, and Subaru. He was basically that guy from that thing in the commercials.
Well, now that we got Herb out of the way, let's talk about the rest of the episodes. Starting with episode 2, The Accidental Groom. Agent Flynn, played by Mark L. Taylor, an immigration officer, informs Ms. Frick that she will be deported to Germany unless she can marry a U.S. citizen within 24 hours. When it appears that Tarkington is the only available suitor, he and Frick set out to prove her first husband was an American.
Oh, boy.
Boy, where have we seen this before?
Yeah, this sounds like an episode of We Got It Made, only I know for a fact that it is not.
Well, I was thinking more specifically, there was a movie with Gerard Depardieu around this time called Green Card.
Oh yeah, that movie. I remember that movie.
Oh,
Yeah.
that'll be another movie that'll be on It Was a Thing at the Movies.
Mm-hmm. So we have this sort of fun bit of information. You know who directed this episode?
Who directed this episode?
Bill Bixby.
Oh,
Right.
yeah!
Tried to recover from future installment Goodnight Beantown.
Yup. Good Night, Beantown.
Well, that's 5 years after Goodnight Beantown.
Mm-hmm. This was between a couple of Incredible Hulk movies, so.
Oh, yeah, we're going to definitely cover those Incredible Hulk movies at some point. Especially the one with Thor.
Oh, yeah. Let's just say he does not look like Chris Hemsworth at all.
Yeah, we'll get to that whenever Thor Love and Thunder comes out. Whenever this whole mess with the coronavirus gets settled.
Yep. Episode 3. A Frick Called Wanda. A younger woman named Gwen Good, played by Beth Broderick of Sabrina the Teenage Witch and Men in Black the series, tried to seduce Tarkington, sending him into full midlife crisis mode. A jealous Ms. Frick discovers that Gwen is working for the infamous criminal mastermind Hans Grublick, played by Michael Harris.
Okay, that's a little too close to Hans Gruber for me.
Well, again, take a look at when this show aired.
Right, I get that. Also, we should note that the person who directed this episode, it wasn't Bill Bixby, and actually this person directed at least 3 episodes of the series, is Bruce Bilson, and that name may not ring a bell, but his most popular work besides this was on, again, previous series done by Mel Brooks, Get Smart. The original Get Smart.
Mm-hmm. And also Hans Grublick played Ambassador Byleth on the 1993 episode of TNG Liaisons.
Everything goes back to TNG.
Yes, it does.
Oh, and we should also note, we talked about the ratings for the first episode, 23 million people.
Uh-huh.
In 3 weeks, the ratings went from 23 million viewers down to 15.6 million. So there might be your reason for the cancellation, because you've essentially lost a third of the audience. Another reason that it may have dropped that much, there was no episode on October 4th of 1989 because of playoff baseball.
Yeah, because this would have been NBC's last year with their MLB contract. So they would have been airing the American League Championship Series and the National League Championship Series in '89, because ABC obviously had the World Series, which was the famed Battle of the Bay / Earthquake Series between the Athletics and Giants.
Yep.
Right. Okay, next up is episode 4, 21 Men and a Baby. I thought I was going to hear an ooh there.
Ooh.
Well, there's no Tom
that
Selleck
just-
or Steve Gutenberg, so...
Yeah, that just sounds fake. That wasn't
That
real.
was a half-assed ooh. I will be the first
Yeah.
to admit.
Tarkenton's favorite basketball team is in town, and their coach chooses the nearly empty Nutt House for his team's accommodations in the hope that it is the quietest place in the city. Instead, a crying baby keeps the team's 21 players up all night. When the baby's mother leaves her child in Miss Frick's care, Frick's long-suppressed motherly instincts are awakened.
Okay, Mike, I have a rant about this.
Rant away.
What basketball team has 21 players?
Basketball team with a lot of backups.
Okay,
Lot
Okay.
of backups.
okay, I can understand if maybe it's a college team and you have like a lot of red shirts who are traveling with the team, okay? But How many players does a pro basketball roster have? Unless it's like, I can understand if maybe it's preseason or something, but doesn't a basketball team at most have like 15, 16 players?
Yeah, NBA right now is 15.
Yeah, so 21 players. Jeez.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Maybe, the powers that be just didn't do any research. During this episode, as I mentioned earlier, the coach wanted to find the quietest place in town so his team could get rest. And the team performs horribly on the basketball court and openly blames Tarkenton. Oh, this is the fault of Tarkenton at the Nutt House. And it's like, oops. Yeah, it wasn't Tarkenton's fault or the hotel's fault that they got no sleep. It was because of this crying baby.
Yep.
And it gets even deeper than that because the baby's mother abandoned the child and eventually showed up at the end. And that's actually one of the issues I sort of have with this show, at least this episode, is it started out really funny and then it got like really dead serious about 5 minutes left into the show. It wasn't funny anymore. There was no laughing, not even a laugh track, like for the last 5 minutes, even during funny stuff. It's like, okay, comedy's done. Now we're getting
really,
serious because
really
we're talking about a baby's mother here and the abandoned baby. Abandoned, I think it was like a 1-year-old or so. It was bizarre. I mean, it definitely was not like Faulty Towers-ish. It was like, okay, there's a moral and a story here, and the humor just like totally stops.
Yeah, this is basically out of brands for Mel Brooks. But then again,
yeah, it's definitely out of brand for Mel Brooks, but also this could not air nowadays. And the reason I say that is because in one scene where Miss Frick was taking care of the baby, there was a mobile in the crib for the baby to watch and play. And remember, Miss Frick has that German background. So what was on the mobile? Nazi airplanes.
Oh God.
Oh.
No, that would never.
Especially in 2020.
No.
Yeah, that did not age very well, in my opinion. So,
Aged like milk.
Yeah, this is maybe an episode I should have skipped, but also at the same time, maybe it gave me a good idea why this show didn't last much longer, because the next episode is the last episode that aired in the United States. And it's another timely named episode using a title which is a spoof of a movie around that time. Because look what we had. We had The Accidental Groom. Think of like The Accidental Tourist. A Frick Called Wanda. A Fish Called Wanda. 21 Men and a Baby. 3 Men and a Baby. And now we have Sweets, Lies, and Videotape. And no, you're not getting sex, you're getting sweets. Sweets, Lies, and Videotape. The President of the United States is in town to make an appearance at the Gentile Haberdashers Conference, and Charles hopes to lure him into staying in the presidential suite at the Nutt House. To do so, he asks the employees to produce and star in a promotional video for the hotel.
Well, we already made a joke to Nazis in the previous episode, and we're going to make a joke about a Nazi in the segment at the end regarding a certain hate box, so we're just going to skip this one.
Okay. And you know what? You skipped this one. NBC went ahead and skipped all the other ones because this was the series finale, at least in the U.S. At least in the U.S.
Yeah, the BBC, as I said earlier, showed all the episodes. And interestingly enough, they didn't have a set time spot for it. It aired on Saturday evenings, but the time varied. Sometimes it aired at 11 p.m., sometimes at 11:30. The final episode aired, believe it or not, at 7:30 p.m. So, maybe a reason it didn't last beyond... it wouldn't have lasted more than the 10 episodes. But yeah, they couldn't even find a time slot for this show. It bounced around to at least 3, maybe even more time slots in like 2 months. That's not good.
No, it is not good. No, it is not good. So the rest of the show aired on BBC 2, you said.
It's not even good
I
enough.
saw
for
I saw BBC, not BBC Two.
Oh, I'm seeing BBC 2.
Oh, okay. I see BBC Two. Okay.
I was gonna say this wasn't even good enough for BBC One.
Hey, you could say the same about Only Connect. Yeah, that's right. I said it. Only Connect is on BBC Two, and that actually started on BBC Four, I think. So you know what? Blow it out your nose.
Okay, so we're going into episode 6 now. When Charles met Sally. Does that sound like anything to you? Yes? Okay.
Oh, when Harry met Sally. Tee-hee-hee.
When Charles hires Marla to be the Nutt House's public relations officer, she immediately becomes Sally's rival for his affections. Marla plans Charles to be the main attraction of a fashion show, but Ms. Frick and Freddy, disguised as a carpenter, decide to help out Sally in their own inimitable style. Interesting thing about this episode, do you know who played Marla in this episode?
I have no idea.
That would be Beverly Leach. She of, aka Kate Monday of MathNet.
Oh, now that's cool. That's cool.
Right?
Yeah, that's great.
There you go.
There is life after Square One TV. Oh no, that's mean because Reggie Cathy has had a good career.
Yeah, Larry Cedar also had a good career. You leave him alone.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So there you go. That's episode 6. Episode 7. Does this sound like anything to you? A Night at the Reunion.
This is the first one I can't really place to a movie.
Night at the Opera. It would be.
Oh, Night at the Opera.
It was either a movie or a Queen album, one of the two.
Well, Night at the Opera as a movie, that wouldn't have been 1989. That would have been long time ago.
And the Queen album was like, what, 10 years earlier?
Yeah. Tarkenton's Roosevelt High School class of 1949 is staying at the Nutt House while in town for a reunion. Reginald tries to hide the fact that he is the hotel's manager, instead of pretending to be into big business to impress his high school rivals and classmates, which include Pope John Paul II?
Yeah, that's realistic.
Yeah. A Polish priest just happens to be classmates with this guy.
He could have been an exchange student.
Could have been an exchange student.
But yeah, not a really big sense of reality there.
No, but then again, this is the Nutt House. Were you expecting any sense of realism?
It's Mel Brooks, though, so maybe a little bit. But also, I mentioned earlier on the 21 Men and a Baby episode, you know, that got really real when the mother abandoned the child and then came back and got the kid back. So I have mixed thoughts about the reality, to be honest with you.
Okay. All right. Episode 8. To Tell the Truth. That doesn't sound like anything. Sally is trying to raise $1,170 so her mother can get her nose fixed. Tarkington has just won some cash, but at the same time, an acrobatic female burglar and her gorilla of an assistant raid the Nutt House till.
So we found out some stuff about Deborah Wakeham, who presumably played the acrobat in this episode. And Greg's going to share that with us right now.
Oh, yes, because she was in an episode in 1991 in Quantum Leap. And she was in the episode Heart of a Champion, which was the wrestling-themed episode of Quantum Leap, which co-starred Terry Funk of, yes, the legend himself, Terry Funk, who, of course, shows up in future entry Tequila and Bonetti.
Yeah, but also we should add that she appeared on 2 separate episodes of Sledgehammer, as we mentioned earlier, first off, future installment, but also Alan Spencer, who was an executive producer of this show, created Sledgehammer. So there's a nice little synergy between those two folks.
Yes, and she had a guest spot in 1987 on future installment, The Oldest Rookie, starring Paul Sorvino.
Well, that takes us to the second to last episode, My Man Tarkington. Reggie Tarkington is replaced by Alec Creed on, of all times, Pay Raise Day. Creed fires Freddy, but the rest of the Nutt House staff conspires together against the stuffy Englishman to get Freddy reinstated.
Yeah, you know who played Alec Creed in this episode? Paxton Whitehead of Once and Future Installment, Marblehead Manor.
Oh, yeah.
What is with him appearing on TV shows about hotels?
And what is up with him appearing as the stuffy Englishman?
Typecasting.
Yeah, typecasting.
Definitely typecasting.
And that takes us to the last episode, The Nutcracker Suite. N-U-T-T Cracker Suite. Ha 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 ha.
It's funny because it's about dance and it's about a hotel. Anyway.
And they spelled it after the Nutt House. Nut, N-U-T-T. Yeah, anyhow. Sally has invited the Kiev Ballet into the Nutt House to further the peaceful connections between the U.S. and the USSR. Oh, this is a timely episode that would have aired in late 1989, right as the Berlin Wall fell.
Yep. Communism is dead.
Communism is dead, and so's this show. She is especially looking forward to meeting handsome dancer Mikhail Nabokov.
Played by Tengiz Borisov, who may or may not be an actual dancer. But he has been in Red Heat, TV 101, and Tracy Takes On.
Yeah, but we also need to talk about another guest star on this
Here
episode.
we go.
Yeah, I think Chico knows where I'm going with this.
I'm literally looking at the guest roster right now, and I know how your one-track mind works, sorta.
There's more than one track, but the thing is, this definitely needs to be mentioned. Portraying a newlywed woman on this episode, sit down, folks. Holly Hallstrom from The Price is Right.
Oh!
Holly Hallstrom was my first TV crush, by the way.
I think she was a lot of our first TV crushes.
She wasn't mine, but I'll take your guys' words for it.
Kids. Well, taking a look at a review, I'm going to give you a review that appeared in the newspaper the day of the premiere, September 20th of 1989. And this is pretty accurate when you listen to this. NBC's The Nutt House takes a shotgun approach to comedy, scattering gags like buckshot. Some hit and some miss, and it sure makes a lot of noise. That figures, since the show was co-created by Mel Brooks, whose TV credits include When Things Are Rotten and Get Smart. His collaborator, the real force behind the show, is Alan Spencer, whose previous series was the underrated Sledgehammer. Even their titles have exclamation marks. Boom! Nutt House, a half-hour premiering in an hour-long special, stars Harvey Korman as manager and Cloris Leachman as the head housekeeper of a down-on-its-luck New York hotel. Leachman's Miss Frick is a comically overpetted reprise of Frau Blicker from Young Frankenstein, and she also puts in a nearly unrecognizable appearance as the hotel's ancient owner, Edwina Nutt. The latter is reminiscent of a Tim Conway sketch character from The Carol Burnett Show, where Corman made his biggest mark in TV. The pilot involves, as we said earlier, an attempt to take over the hotel by Texas oilman Big Jake Herder, played by David Huddleston. It's frequently amusing, occasionally hilarious, and funniest if you pay attention for sight gags as well as jokes. Unlike most sitcoms, shot with 4 cameras before an audience, Nutt House is a one-camera show with a laugh track. That makes it look more like a movie or an old series. Bottom line is this. If you're a fan of Brooks movies, you'll probably like Nutt House. Once anyway. Keeping the guest register full will be a challenge. And yes, it was a challenge because it was gone a month later, at least on American TV.
Yep.
But also, something interesting I found in the research that I did is, and this is the headline of this article, "If the Nutt House doesn't click, I'll quit." Harvey Korman, or Korman. Harvey Korman plans to pack it in if his new television show, The Nutt House, isn't a hit. The show feels right, and we have a strong lead-in Night Court. If we blow the lead-in and I'm wrong about the show, then that's it. Definitely. He said concerning Wednesday's debut on NBC. Korman, 62, has been trying for a hit since The Carol Burnett Show. The new show produced by Mel Brooks will be try number 4.
Aww.
And did he call it quits?
Did he call it quits?
Well, as a lead, yeah. He did a lot of work after 1989, but he didn't have any regular series after The Nutt House. So he was right? Maybe?
He was rightish.
Possibly? Somebody says that kind of bit where his voice inflects really high. But yeah, we should note that the shows that he's referring to, the 4 shows, obviously the Nutt House is one. And I think most of these are future installments. At least 2 of these are. The Harvey Korman Show, which ran all of 6 episodes, and Leo and Liz in Beverly Hills, which is definitely a future installment. We have that on the list for sure. But also, I think he's including Mama's Family because he was apparently in just the first 2 seasons, the NBC run, not in the syndicated run. So that I'm willing to give him a pass on, but I could see why he would say that was a failure.
Uh-huh.
So Harvey Korman held up his end of the bargain. He didn't have the lead or was a regular on any other shows after this. So good on you for being a man, Harvey Korman, maybe?
Possibly?
Well, we still remember and love you from the Carol Burnett Show.
They can't take that away from you.
Yeah.
No, they can't. It still lives it still lives as reruns. Oh, by the way, in case you didn't notice, if you get RFD TV, they just started showing reruns of Carol Burnett's show.
Oh, okay.
And they started at the beginning in 1967.
Ooh.
Wow.
They only show it twice a week. One is like early Sunday mornings, and then again it's like primetime on Wednesday nights, I think. But I happened to catch it, maybe it was 2 weeks ago, maybe it was last week. And after doing a little digging on IMDb, it was like the 7th episode or 6th episode. And it did have a copyright of 67. So just something if you want to see some old TV. Well, I think that's just about it. I think the Nutt House is being foreclosed upon.
Yeah. Do we know what replaced the Nutt House, or did it just vanish without trace? Because NBC in '89 would be a very sort of a network in transition, let's say.
I don't think it was in that much transition.
Night Court had to move to Wednesdays to make room for Thursdays at 9:30, which started with Dear John and continued with Grand, and then
Future installment Grand, by the way.
Future installment Grand, and then continued with with Glenn Quagmire's favorite show, Wings.
Was this a cartoon?
No, oh my God, no! It took place in an airport. The thing was on for 10 years, and the funny repair guy was Lowell. It made Tony Shalhoub's career.
Who? The tennis player?
Yeah, you know what? Screw you guys. I don't even know you. Crazy people living under a rock don't know Wings. I love Wings.
And then some show after Wings during the summer called some show starring Jerry Seinfeld during the summer.
Would that have been the Seinfeld Chronicles?
Oh,
That that would have been whatever happened to that show.
Yeah, I wonder.
Don't know,
Oh,
but I love Wings. It made Tony Shalhoub's career.
Made
Yeah.
Tony Shalhoub's career.
Yep. Yeah, how dare Peter, Cleveland, and Joe not know the greatness that was Wings?
Yeah, it made Tony Shalhoub's career.
Yeah.
Love Wings. But yeah, the show. But yeah, the Nutt House was sandwiched between Night Court and Quantum Leap. It couldn't lose.
Yeah. I mean, come
Well-
on. It's got, the power of Bull and Scott Bakula.
Well, it did fail.
Oh.
And actually it got replaced by the third season of My Two Dads. And that didn't last terribly long because that was then replaced with the second season of Dear John.
Yeah. And obviously it didn't last too long, My Two Dads, because Stacey Keenan would be on future installment Going Places.
Nice.
I was waiting for Mike to respond to the Going Places.
I have nothing to say.
Good.
I have nothing to say, but the Nutt House. It had Mel Brooks. It had Cloris Leachman. It had Harvey Korman.
It had that bastard Charles Logan from 24.
It had that bastard Charles Logan from 24, like Greg said.
It had her.
It had comedy sometimes? Question mark. It had Herb on the pilot, but yeah, this was at least this was not that good. It definitely wasn't as good as Get Smart, and it definitely wasn't as good as When Things Were Rotten. This sort of like was a low point, in my opinion, of Mel Brooks's career. And that's why after 5 episodes, at least in the United States, and now 30 plus years later, it was just a thing on TV.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, now that we've foreclosed on the Nutt House, we can open up the webpage at itwasathingontv.com where we can talk about the Nutt House and all the other shows that we've covered. We have over 70 shows spanning 6,000 listeners. And by the way, we hit that mark last week, and thank you all so much.
Yes.
Unless it's one person who's downloading the shows 6,000 times. If that's the case, screw you.
Yeah. And by the way, guys, of course, every Wednesday on Place to Be Nation Pop, you can check our previous week's episodes over there. But you might be saying, well, guys, why would we do that when we can listen to the episodes on your feed? Not so fast, my friend, because occasionally we'll have stuff that didn't make the final cut. Obviously, when we did the XFL 2001 episode over on Place to Be Nation Pop, we had to include an addendum because of what happened with the cancellation of the XFL 2020 season because of COVID-19. But now we've included a bonus segment in the episode on the David Letterman show on Place to Be Nation Pop. So check that out over there.
And as always, as we like to remind you, don't forget to subscribe and like, and don't forget to rate and review, and 5 stars only, none of that 4-star crap, because
if you have 4 stars, you can take it up with us personally.
Exactly. And we'll go in there and edit it somehow. We'll say, oh, you know what? That person gave me 1 star. Nope. Click 5 stars. Haha. Screw you. But also, as always, don't forget to share with friends and family, anybody else you think might be interested in this podcast, because sharing definitely is caring in these parts.
Indeed. Next week on the big show, oh boy, Greg.
Oh, yes!
Greg's going to be doing the heavy lift all next week. Or at
Well,
least the first part.
the first part. Mike's going to be taking the second part, but there's going to be one part in the second episode where I'm going to be 1-800-235-DEAD, like one person in a particular segment.
Well, let's just say we we covered this on a previous episode of this show. That was only the beginning.
Yes.
Yeah, this is like an extension of it.
Yeah, if you listen to one of our previous episodes, because I don't want to give it away, you might have an idea of where we're going. Next week, we're going to answer the question, how much baby oil can one man afford?
Why don't you just give the subject away, Greg?
Well, they're going to have to tune in next week to find the answer.
Well, if they listen on a regular basis, they already know the answer to that.
Yeah.
Well, in case you don't know what that is, we'll just keep you hanging until Monday. So for now, we'll talk to you on the 29th with the next installment of It Was a Thing on TV. Thanks for listening.
Wow! The Nutt House.